let it do its little thing, and then
Hi, everybody. Welcome to Mark's Backyard Birds. We are getting up and running here. Let's see, gonna do it again. Melanie's got the TikTok going on over there. Hello, TikTok people. Instagram going over here, and you can welcome in. Welcome in to requested live tonight at a requested program. I see Lisa's on. You're the most recent person who asked for a program on this topic. Other people have asked as well. And before we get started in that, always we let people have time to check in and get established and introduce ourselves. I am Mark McKellar, and this is my wife, Melanie, the producer over there. She'll show you her hands is about it. You get, and Sophie, the producer dog, is in the chair right here between us. So we're on tonight, and we are here in Kansas City, Missouri, right in the heart of the country. We've lived here 33 years now, something like that, 30, almost 40, 34 years now. And we own a store called Backyard Bird Center. And I'm a wildlife biologist who has ran nature centers for a living. I have worked for the Conservation Department of North Carolina, the Conservation Department of Missouri, and I have forever been in love with birds and study birds. Over 40 years now, led countless bird hikes, bird programs, trips to distant places for bird watching, and I'm so fortunate that my love and hobby became my profession, and I'm proud to be a wildlife biologist and hopefully spreading the good word about birds and bird conservation. And that has a lot to do with what tonight's topic is about. So let's see if we can welcome some people in. People are jumping on. Hi, Sandy from Kankakee, Illinois, a super regular. Thank you for joining us. And the before mentioned Lisa from Ontario, who requested this program tonight most recently. Hi, Jan from Belton, just south here of Kansas City here. Hi, Shirley. Welcome in from San Antonio, Texas. Hope you're doing well tonight. Oh, hi from Utah. That's right. Another of our real regulars. Rick from North Carolina. He was on very active on our last program about the bird flu with it because he has chickens and was kind of filling us in on kind of what's going on in that world, which was great help for that program. Hi, Alyssa. Good to see you in tonight from New Jersey. Hi, Steve from Northeast Illinois. Welcome in. Janine Pfeiffer from Central New York. Welcome in. And I bet a lot of you people have snow now because our snow's melting, right? We finally are melting. It was in the 50s. It was 55 yesterday for the first time since early November 4th, I think they said. And it's raining today, so we'll melt some more of this snow. And who knows, it might drop off again. Neil Brown from Ohio, welcome in. Got a lot of Ohio folks in there. Ruth Simmons, right, one of my best friends in this world, that works at the store for me, and we've birded countless hours together over the years. And she made it in time. She was saying she didn't know if she was going to be able to make it back home for the program tonight. So thank you for joining us. Terrell Cockrum from Northern Michigan. You're up there where it's really cold, that's for sure. Jason from Illinois, welcome in. Saw your feed storage clip. I don't have a storage problem. I have a consumption problem.
I love that.
Yeah, this time of year, it certainly is more of a consumption problem. Going through about 30 pounds of black hole seeds a week. My goodness. I wish you lived closer to the store. We could keep you in stock there. Wow. Hello, Ellie, regular customer at the store here, just lives pretty close by the store. Jordan from PA, welcome in. How are things in Pennsylvania? Hello, Carrie, my friend and store manager, just down the street. Glad you can get it on. Yes, it is rainy. Be beautiful. From Bonnie. Hi, Bonnie from Nebraska. I never recognize that name. You're a regular. Janine had snow since Christmas, hadn't left. Very cold here. Yeah, it's a stressful time, and it is indefinitely.
We still have the big mounds.
We have the mounds of snow that haven't, that were piled up in the streets and the parking lots, and those are still there. But the grass, there's still some on the grass, but it's it's starting to go away. I just told this before on here. I think that when I first moved to Missouri, I worked with a forester with the conservation department, and he told me back then. Of course, he'd grown up here, lived his whole life. He said that here in this area, if it snows before February 1st, it can stay around for a month or more. If it snows after February 1st, it's usually gone in 2 days. And I'm telling you, like I said, the 33 years I lived here, that has been pretty much the way it is since we've lived here. Hi, Andrew. Welcome in from Cincinnati, Ohio. Hey, it's a chance to plug this. Andrew just ordered a hat today. Not this one. This is Melanie's painted bunting hat. But we finally got our restock on our hats, and Andrew ordered a cardinal. We shipped that out today. But the hats are back in stock. So if you go on the Shop Backyard Bird Center, you can see the hat collection. We added monarch butterfly. We've added great horned owl, and seems like there's another one. Oh, well, the bald eagle. The bald eagle sold out so fast the first time we got it in. We didn't have any on the online store, but it's on there now too. So the hats are back in stock. Thank you, Andrew. That prompted me and reminded me to show the hat because those are back in stock. And remember, folks, if you like the videos, obviously we'd love you to like them and share them and subscribe. But the ways to support us to help keep us going is the online store, and all that information is below the description of the video. There's a description for the video, and it tells you about me and that kind of thing. But it's got all the links to the store, the contact information, and you can support. I try to put links in for videos that I mentioned during the program and items that are available if you want to support us that way, and that's wonderful. So get that one in there, a plug before we get going on the topic tonight. Absolutely. Dropped the Andrew. Carrie packed it up, and I took it down to the post office. Let's see, Sandy. We have been in 30s and 40s. The birds are coming. Feeders have slowed. They must have been. Yeah, that's right. Sandy. That's what I tell people about these little breaks in the weather that we get in the winter, and the birds slow up, and people are like, oh, they're gone. They're leaving us. No, I always equate it to you having to eat French fries every day, all day for 2.5 weeks or whatever the snow the cold period is. As soon as it gets mild, they go out and they try to find natural food. They want to diversify their diet, and of course they're always looking for insects and things like that too. But they find berries. When it's stressful, that's when bird feeders are so important to them. They don't have to work so hard because they know where that free food source is. But as soon as it gets just a little bit mild, then they are really out there working nature like they should and finding their food offerings. Yes, the pileated sold out really quick too last time. So yeah, we have some of those in. Absolutely. Hola, Mr. Rourke. Welcome in. Haven't seen the grass in weeks here. Today was 46. Have a lot of dog. I bet. So yeah, we've been Even though Sophie is tiny, she does produce, and I'm out there cleaning that up all the time. It should be there in a couple of days, Andrew. Absolutely. All right. Okay. So we've got, like I said, we always have to give people time to get in because we know that different platforms take a little while, and we have to get the connections like TikTok and everything. So we get that going. So what is tonight's topic? Well, I actually have been kind of worried about this topic. I told you, my background is conservation as a conservation and wildlife biologist, and I have been dealing with this topic for years and years and years. Anytime that I mention or in videos, and we talk about management and we talk about invasive exotic species and their impact on native bird populations, I always get pushback, negative comments from folks jumping in and saying things like, we should treat them all equally. They're all God's creatures, that kind of thing. And shame on you for advising people to tear their nest out of bluebird boxes, sparrow's nest out of bluebird, things like that. Okay. So I know those, and I respect everyone's opinion. I really, really do. And and before, like I said, getting into this topic, I want you to know that very much anything I say that hopefully it won't offend you, but if you disagree with it, just know that I respect your decision. If you don't have it in your heart to rip out a sparrow's nest so that the bluebird can nest in that box, that's perfectly okay. And you understand that. But I am from the conservation field where I try to protect native species. And people get and ask me for advice, and they seek out me to give them advice to how to live with these invasive species and things. So that's where I'm coming from on this program tonight. And I thank you for joining with me, and hopefully you'll get learn some things tonight. Let's say, so what are invasive species? What are exotic invasive species? Now, it can be taken a lot of ways. There are lots of different types of invasive species. Most invasive species, and they can be plants or animals, are those that are introduced into this country either on purpose or by accident, that thrive in this new environment. They may come from another part of the world where environmental factors keep them in check, or they have natural predators that keep them in check, and they're just not that problematic for the other species they live with. Well, when they get introduced into a new ecosystem, like so many things like here in North America, some of them just go crazy. They ramp it, and it's not that they decide to go crazy. It's just that those natural conditions favor them, and they start growing out of control. There's no weather control. There's nothing that eats them if it's a plant or an animal, and so they reproduce rapidly. And so what happens is these species of plants and animals that have always been here, all of a sudden are forced into a whole lot of competition. So, whether it's nesting competition, whether it's food competition, whether it's space competition, where they habitat, things like that, and they outcompete or they push out native species. And this is a problem, especially for people in conservation who are dedicated to preserving our native species, our habitat, our the species that, quote, we feel evolved here, they belong here, and we want to do what we can to protect them. Now, when we talk about these species, it's amazing how people have different views. When we talk about the gypsy moth, which got introduced into this country and wiped out thousands and tens of thousands of acres of oak trees, oak habitat, which of course destroys nesting habitat and living habitat for so many other plants and animals in this country. It's okay. People are like, okay, spray them, kill them. We don't need them. Don't want them. Get rid of all of them. You don't have people, pro gypsy moth people. Whenever you're talking about hydrilla. Hydrilla is, what hydrilla is? Hydrilla is that little grass or plant that used to be you used to get when you bought a fish for your fish tank, and they would sell you that little green strip of kind of spindly grass, and you put it in there with your fish. Well, people got, when they got tired of their fish, they would take that and go just dump it out into a pond or into a river, and that plant went absolutely bananas in this country. It just spread everywhere. It clogged waterways. It clogged intakes to power plants. It did all kind of terrible things. And we have to kill it. We have to manage it. We have to, do what we can to live with it because there's so much of it. Goldfish. It's just endless. There's just endless examples of that. But when we talk about a bird, a lot of people get upset when we talk about anything to do to try to control them. Here's my first picture. Down in Florida, give you some examples. Why does every time we start with it happen in Florida? No, okay. In Florida, there's this beautiful bird on the bottom right called the purple gallinule. We have them up, all along the Gulf Coast and up the north of Carolina and places, and they're beautiful wetland birds, and they live in the marshes and the swamps. Well, several years ago, the one on the upper left, this gray-headed swamp hen, got introduced into those wetlands down there, and they outcompete the native purple gallinule. So whenever the conservation department down there tried to take drastic measures to eliminate what it was called the purple swamp hen, the gray-headed swamp hen, because of the impact it was making on our native birds, some people got upset. Like, oh no, you can't harm that bird. Well, they're trying to manage the habitat and the bird population for what it is. And an introduced species like this had a very negative impact on the purple gallinule and other wetland birds too. But in that same habitat down there, these iguanas have been introduced, and they are eating tons of native birds and bird nests and bird eggs, and they are, very, very detrimental down there. And for some reason, people don't see that and controlling them as a bad thing. Oh yeah, you can. There's so many of them. They're everywhere. They're eating everything. They for people, they're okay with them hunting them and killing them, things like that. But when it's a bird, it just seems to register differently with folks. And for people, in the wildlife world, we called it charismatic megafauna, which is the elephants and lions and tigers and big-eyed doe deer and things like that. People just, their parental instincts and their parental feelings are they come into play, and they feel sorry for them, and they project human feelings into them. Whereas in an iguana or a Burmese python or a rock python, that are eating the native wildlife down there, yeah, put a bounty on them, catch them. But it's just a perception as to what's perceived as being, invasive and not invasive. This picture shows really two good examples. One, did you know that cows are not native to this country? The dogs and cats are not native to this country. Things have been introduced here for years, and things we take completely for granted. But one of the reasons why some animals have been able to thrive here and not negatively impact too much is because we altered the habitat so greatly for them. Whereas the cows have done really well in a lot of open pasture land that was forest 200 years ago. So we've created habitat for cattle and horses and livestock, things like that. And so we don't think of them as being invasive or exotic. And I love this picture for that, but also because of these cattle egrets that are sitting on this post. Not all invasive species have to be introduced here by man. This species, the cattle egret, has actually got here on its own. We know that it made the transatlantic flight on its own from the old world, Africa to the Caribbean, up through Florida, and established in great parts of the country. So you would think, well, why don't the cattle egrets compete and negatively impact the other great egrets or the snowy egrets or the night herons, the members of that family, like we're going to talk about with the sparrows and starlings? Well, these birds are so unique; they don't act as much like the herons that eat on fish and mollusks and things like that. These guys actually walk around in pastures, and they nest later, so they don't nest compete with the other egrets. So this is one that has kind of made it on his own and has fit in and not been so detrimental. So we have that type of a situation. And then we have the escape pet types. Parrots. There was one native parrot to the whole United States, but several parrots, especially places like South Texas, where this picture was taken, and in Florida, most of those are escape pets, and they have formed breeding flocks, and some of them, they're a bigger enough population, but they tend not to compete with native birds because they're not native members of the parrot family, and their nesting habitat, there can be some impact, but for the most part, they're not considered exotic and intrusive. They don't outcompete native birds, so they're accepted by a lot of people. How about this one? The Eurasian collared dove. This bird on the left was introduced into Florida back in the 1980s, just the 80s, and now it's in almost every state, and it has bred crazy. And we thought at first, our biggest fear was that it was going to really greatly impact and negatively impact like mourning doves. But at this point, it really hasn't. And there's some, biologically, it's still being studied. We think eventually that the numbers are going to show that it does impact them. But right now, they're not, and that's a good thing. So they're not all invasive exotics are truly detrimental to native populations. Now, how about this? Everybody's going, what? House finch, American, and goldfinch? What are we talking about them and the invasive exotics? Well, the house finch was, confined to the desert southwest of the U.S. Now, it was human assisted by capturing and taking them and selling as cage birds in New York and Boston and Philly and big cities out east. And then when they made that illegal, they had to release all of these house finches, and they established a breeding population in the Northeast, and they were greatly outcompeting American goldfinches. People were really upset because the American goldfinches were disappearing from their feeders because the house finches were out competing them. Now we have learned how to deal with that. The house finches, of course, have expanded from the desert southwest up to the heart of the country, and those from the east have made it to the central part of the country. But we learned how to feed differently to keep the goldfinches happy and also have house finches as well. The upside down finch feeder was totally designed for this conundrum. The house finches won't hang upside down, but the goldfinches will. But also we've learned that house finches prefer safflower over Niger and over, and like sunflower chips. So we're able to feed them and give them both places to feed. So they've actually now coexist at feeders which at first were a big problem. And so this was like an example of us being able to adapt our habits so that the two birds could get along, and that's a good thing. So this is one that's not classically thought of as an invasive exotic. So one that truly is, and this is another head scratcher a little bit. This is the house sparrow, which we're going to talk extensively about. And on the right is its cousin, the Eurasian tree sparrow. They were both introduced back in like the 1850s. The house sparrow was introduced into the New York area. The Eurasian tree sparrow was introduced into St. Louis city, the city of St. Louis, and for very different reasons. The house sparrow was introduced because it was expected to eat the caterpillars that were eating on the native basswood trees in New York. Well, house sparrows don't eat a lot of insects. They only eat them truly only when they're feeding them to their babies. And then the rest of the time they eat grains, and we've learned what happened after that. Well, the Eurasian tree sparrow is pretty darn closely related. And one of these two is now in all 50 states, all up in Canada, all over in the Caribbean. It's spread aggressively, and it's been a major problem for cavity nesting birds, native birds to this country. The other one has kind of just stayed really right in the St. Louis area. It nests there, but it's not a major problem for our native birds. They are starting to expand a little bit now. Iowa has some records, and they've expanded a little bit west down the Missouri River, and we've had some records here in Kansas City. But it's really a tale of two cousins, that why one has a very, very aggressive nature and the other one does not, and being that closely related. So not all introduced people like that, even this closely related. Why has the house sparrow become such a major problem? Well, they are very aggressive, and you guys know who feed them, and I do get your complaints. I mean, we talk about them all the time on our lives, how to deal with house sparrows. There can be a huge problem. But for the birds out there, the biggest problem for those are the ones that nest in cavities. The house sparrow is a cavity nester. It fits perfectly in a 1.5 inch hole. And other birds that use that size hole or drill their own hole about that size, house sparrows regularly take over their nest. The bluebirds being the prime example. Chickadees, titmice, Carolina wrens, even downy woodpeckers, the house sparrows will run these birds out of a nest cavity, a nest box, or a hole in a tree, and they've been doing it for years. It was a major cause, not the only cause, but a major cause in the decline in the bluebird population. It is written that in literature that at the turn of the last century, bluebirds were as common in urban areas as robins were. What happened? The introduction of the house sparrow was a huge thing. I mean, they spread from the East Coast to the Rocky Mountains in about a year. Not even a year. I mean, I say a year. In half, what was it, 40 years, I think I read, they did across. And not only when they introduced them there, they also took some and let them go in San Francisco, and they took some and let them go in Salt Lake City. So they gave them help getting spread out, and now they're everywhere. And for a lot of people that feed birds and are bluebird landlords or purple martin landlords, they are a major pest. I mean, you're trying to propagate a species that is here and it's native to here, and you're trying to help them out. And if we didn't help them, and the nest box program, the bluebird nest box program, was a major success story for for bluebirds. But that took us getting actively involved in helping those bluebirds with their nesting. And yes, that does include ripping out the house sparrow nest and ripping it out and cleaning it out and letting those bluebirds get established there. I've had people make the statement things like us hurting their feelings and things like that. And that is projecting human feelings into a wild animal. A house sparrow doesn't get his feelings hurt whenever his nest gets ripped out. He just goes and finds another place to nest. And that putting those feelings into wild animals is not, well, it's not the right thing to do, because they don't feel like, they don't do this because they want to do it. They do it because their instincts tell them to do it. And so we have had to help a lot of these birds to give them a little bit of a heads or a leg up to protect them against the house sparrows. Now, the next bird has, and it depends on your point of view. The European starling, it has been even a worse problem for native birds. Part of it is because of their size and their really aggressive nature. But again, their major problem is out-competing cavity nesting birds. This is a bluebird, a screech owl, even a purple martin, a great crested flycatcher, and pretty much all the woodpeckers, cavity nesting birds. We've seen it, and Ruth was telling me just tonight, she was talking about, she watched a red-bellied woodpecker work and drill this cavity in her yard, and it worked really hard, and it just started, and all of a sudden here the starlings came swooping in, harassed it till it left. And we see it all the time. That's the reason why we hardly have any red-headed woodpeckers in urban areas anymore. I remember those when I was a kid. They were fairly common in urban areas. Now, the only place we find them regularly nesting are out in rural areas, like in power poles and pretty out of the way areas where there aren't that many starlings. So the starlings have been a major impact, and you guys who feed birds, I hear your complaints, and I know you guys know what a pest they are to deal with, and how aggressive they are, and how they are. We call them the motorcycle gangs. They come in and they chase off the other birds away from the feeders, and they gobble up all the mealworms you got out. Just different things. I know they impact us, and they're messy, and they. I know. I hear the complaints, and I understand. I have them myself here. But we do what we can. Things that I'm here for is to try to give you ways to live with these birds and how to discourage them effectively. They are going to find their own food. They're going to find their own nesting sites. They're not going away because you are attempting to put up a cage feeder so they can't get into your food, you're not letting them nest in your purple martin houses. They will find places to nest, and you have to be a good landlord and advocate for your birds to get them to deal with them, as we say. So it's a tough subject, and I understand that anyone who has that feeling of, they don't want to do anything. They don't have it in their heart to do that. That is fine. I understand that. For those of you who do want to deal with them, and I hope you find my videos useful and advising you to how to help to deal with these invasive exotic species. Remember, there's lots of them, and they're not all negatively impacting. If you've got red crown parrots in your yard in Texas, wow, that's cool. I mean, you might not like them. I don't know, but they're not known to truly negatively impact a lot down there. But starlings, house sparrows, completely domestic pigeons, completely different story about how they negatively impact birds. So I hope that was useful. We're going to get back to checking in with you guys, your comments and answering questions, but invasive exotics, they do negatively impact a lot of our native birds, and hopefully that gives you some some information how to help.
And remind them if we don't get to their questions here to always put it in the comments.
Yeah, absolutely. We're going to try to get. We always try to get to your comments, and we apologize if we don't. If we miss one or two, please, you can always contact us, and we will try to answer your questions. If I don't get to it here. So, thank you. Is that Roy G. Bibb?
Oh,
what is that?
That's the color, the rainbows.
That's what it is. I'm like, I know that. Why did he? I love it. Thank you for the compliment. I'm glad you like the channel. All right. There you go, Andrew. Yeah, you kind of have to be cold-hearted with it, and believe me, they're going to find somewhere to nest. You just got to want it to keep discouraging. I had a feeling you would be hesitant. Don't blame me. Thank you, Lisa. Believe me, I talked with Ruth and Carrie today a lot about it, and talked to Melanie, and I said I don't want to offend anybody. I really don't, but I have to be the biologist that I am and the advocate for.
And we're trying to do education.
Education. That's what it's all about. Rick is like sparrows. Yeah, I understand. Hello, Frontier, checking in from Southern California. I hope you're okay down there. You guys have had it rough. Good timing. You had a full-blown starling invasion today. Yeah, I'm telling you, stressful conditions bring them in. And believe me, they are survivors. Now ours have lightened up. Now that it's gotten a bit milder, they leave the feeders for all. They go out into that. They're not gone completely, and they did come by and hit, but they are not as troublesome as they were a couple weeks ago. They went through a lot of seed. I have seen invasive species what they can do firsthand. Absolutely, they certainly can. I manage all bird and bat houses around the house. Bluebirds are very beneficial to our garden. Yes, they are. They truly, truly are, and they eat a lot of insects, and we love having them in there. Hello, John P. from Ocala, Florida. Another very, very regular.
Okay, I think this is.
One of our biggest is zebra mussel. Absolutely. I actually thought about putting in a picture. They filter water so well. So feeder fish had no food and died off. Fish, yeah, that's right. The zebra mussels are a major problem here. Not as bad in some areas, but Missouri Department of Conservation has a lot of information out at boat ramps and things to warn people to watch for them and wash them all, make sure they don't transport them from one lake to another. Iguanas are horrible pests in gardens. Worse is in an orange. Oh, I bet. Yeah, those iguanas are huge, and I'm obviously more about getting into eating the bird's nest because they climb trees and they can really impact a lot of native species. There's huge programs to try to rid South Florida of them. You are very welcome. Thank you for the compliment. I'm glad to know people are enjoying it. I hope so. Hope you have something to say about cats. You're trying to get me in trouble. Okay, come on. This was hard enough. I'm telling you, when I talk about cats at garden clubs and things like that, I just have to be really careful. I am not an anti-cat person. My son has 2 of them, and they're sweet little cats, but they're inside all the time. And that is what truly is where they belong. And they're safer there. They're healthier there. And I hope that if you have cats, you keep them indoors. There's a great program through the American Bird Conservancy called Cats Indoors. It's an education program to let you know how much longer cats live if you keep them indoors, how much healthier. They don't get eaten by owls. They don't get eaten by coyotes, things like that. Cats are public enemy number 1 for songbirds, especially. They kill so many every year. And I know that can offend people, but I just try to be honest. I put that information out there.
Education.
And educate you. Yep.
Now this one we know all about.
Oh, kudzu. Yeah. Having grown up in Eastern North Carolina, we know all about kudzu, John.
Remember Nanny had that whole bank.
Oh, good. So I actually had to cut a path through a field of kudzu at work when I worked for the Conservation Department of North Carolina. I didn't think I was going to make it to the other side of that field. I thought that was going to grow up all around me before I could get the other side. Yeah, I mean, people introduce stuff for different reasons, and because it was a terrible plant. If you guys in the north have never dealt with it, yeah, it's something else. Hello there from Springfield, Greg. Good to have you in. Hello, morning to such sweet birds. Yeah, they are. The males are quite feisty in the courting season, aren't they? They follow those females around, and they don't give them a bit of peace. Lenexa, welcome in. Pickle Zero, I love it. Rhonda Williams, hi from Harrow, Ontario, Canada. Another Canadian tonight. Thank you, Rhonda, for checking in. Leonard, something here. I'm in Southwest PA. I must have 50 house finches living in my hedge. Yes. And, the other part of the house finch story, of course, is the reason they haven't become the giant problem we were afraid they were going to be when they first started exploding in the Northeast is because they are so vulnerable to the conjunctivitis eye disease. So when their populations start to get high, that's a natural control. That conjunctivitis eye disease breaks out and it spreads among them, and then their populations drop back down. And so their graph of their populations is up and down, hills and valleys because of that. But if and there's the whole story behind that, watch my video on the house finches, and if you want to learn more about that. Do you think the eastern bluebird will get as popular? I don't see that ever happening, Andrew. Not in urban areas. The Bluebird Box program is helping tremendously. It has helped tremendously, and so in the more rural areas, I think they are much more common than they used to be. And where my store is, I'm on the north side of Kansas City, and when people are asking me about getting bluebirds, I always say from here that way, pointing down into the city of Kansas City, I said it's harder. And from here, that direction, which is going out into the country and to the suburbs, I said it's easier to get them. And I think that's probably true in almost any city in America, especially if you're not too far north. They if you provide habitat, if you help them with nest boxes and you monitor their nest boxes and you give them a chance, they're doing really well. And you just have to be a good steward, a good landlord. But I don't ever see them being as common as robins like they once were.
Okay, so Jim asked, I tried to answer. So he's not getting notifications. And I think you have to do the little bell.
Ring the bell. Yeah.
You have to actually, even though you subscribe, you still have to do the bell.
If you want notifications of when I'm going to be on, when you subscribe, there's that little bell symbol down there, and you click that bell, and that turns on notifications. And so you'll be notified when I'm going to be on or when I'm on. And the way this program I use, StreamYard, it puts an announcement out there on YouTube and supposedly on Facebook a couple of days before the program. And then, of course, like an hour before I go live, it sends out another notification.
Okay, so I just went and looked on somebody else's channel. When you subscribe, if you don't do the drop down, then it doesn't show. So if you do the drop down and you hit all, the bell becomes black instead of a symbol.
Okay.
Empty symbol.
Yeah.
If that helps.
That helps, the subscribe button, it'll drop down the menu. And if you hit all, the bell will turn black. So that means you'll get notifications. So
try that. And if that doesn't work, send us an email and we'll try to help you figure it out.
House wrens are not considered invasive. They are nasty little birds. They are very, very aggressive. They are native to this country. But the thing about native birds, birds have evolved with house wrens, so they know how aggressive house wrens are, and they have lived with them. And it's whenever a new species is introduced that they have no idea that's whenever the trouble really helps. You get that big drop in native populations. Because I always tell this that house cats have only been in this country for 150 years, maybe, and that's not very long for birds and other prey to get used to this new predator. But getting with house wrens, chickadees know that a house wren will go in his net and break his eggs, in the same area. So no, they're totally okay. House wrens and the birds know that. The big benefit for us as landlords is that those house wrens want that little tiny hole, that 1 inch hole that nothing else can get in. And that kind of, you just need to separate their houses away from bluebird houses and any other nest boxes because they are very territorial around their nests.
Okay. Andrew says something about the starlings.
Yeah, it just depends on the time of year, Andrew. About he's saying starlings moving out into the suburb areas. You will see them at certain times of the year, and we always talk about the fall, which is about August, and for most the birds like that, the blackbirds form those huge flocks you see along the power lines and things, and you see them out in grass areas, and you see them probing around in there, and they do that. And then in the winter months, they stay out in those areas a lot, and stress brings them in to that. But of course, they nest all through urban areas and cities, and they nest behind anything. Downspouts and places like that. Any hole they can get in, they'll claim and get in there.
Okay, talk about valuing native birds.
All right,
using cages.
Cages around feeders and planes to it. Yes, that's a good point. The anti-starling remedy for the formula is cage feeders are so important. They keep the blackbirds out, and it needs to be a cage feeder that the cage is far enough out. The old cage feeders used to just be 2 inches away from the tube inside. Well, the starlings can reach right through, so it needs to be the cages that are further out, and the starlings can't get in there. So they're very important. Safflower they don't like nearly as much, and I understand plain suet. They like the peanuts. Peanuts are one of their favorite, but they also they'll go through a suet cake in a heartbeat. So you can battle them. They when they're at their worst. Rhonda, how many times they lay? I think that depends on where you live. The further north, it'll be fewer. The further south, it'll be a lot more. But multiple nests a year. 3 or 4, 5. It just depends on where you are. Kind of like mourning dove. Mourning dove lay that many eggs. They that many nests. They don't lay as many eggs as a house sparrow, but they will continue to crank out the babies. Squirrels, yeah, that's right. But squirrels are native. We have to deal with them.
Do they negatively affect our birds at all?
Well, yeah, they can. But again, birds have evolved with squirrels, so they know how to avoid, and it's uncommon. Occasionally, squirrels will get into a nest and eat crack eggs and eat eggs, things like that. But that's not very common. That's not their typical nature. So they can have a little some negative impact, but nothing super serious. Not like that. So that's a good question. I live in an area with Harris sparrows. Yay! In winter, it seems like except they keep the house sparrows pushed to the height. They're a stout sparrow. The white crowned sparrows, the Harris sparrows, especially, are really stout sparrows. Fox sparrows, another one that is, and they can take care of themselves. That's for sure. It is amazing how, we've had the big mockingbird discussion here the last couple of lives, and how aggressive they are, and they can be, but most of the time they're not. But during high stress, that forces birds and other animals to do things they don't normally do. So when you've got negative temperatures, the birds and the squirrels and everything else, they're going to do what they got to do to survive. And so they get aggressive, and just like a bluebird defending its nest. Well, the house sparrows are just so aggressive. A lot of times they just give up. But I've seen bluebirds absolutely fend off house sparrows, we applaud them and they're happy for them. I saw a purple martin female go into a nest, a purple martin house one time, and when she came out, she had a female house sparrow by the face, and she backed out of that purple martin house and she flung it. These birds can do these kind of things, but there are some situations where they can't. And that is, if the house sparrow fills the nest box full of grass, the bluebird gives up. The purple martin gives up because they can't pull that nesting material out effectively. And so they just give up. That's why you have to be in there helping them. Get that, clean the nest out, and let them get established in the box. I love Harris sparrows, one of my favorite native sparrows.
Okay, this is us.
I've gone storming to chase hordes of starling. Yes, you need. I have. Melanie, I always talk about having the sore knuckles, from banging on the window trying to get them. And now they don't even, they don't even move with that. And so, and then they get used to the sound of the door opening, and they won't leave then. And you have to yell at them and clap. And yes, they are. I mean, they get bold. They really do.
This is cool.
When I go to the local nature parks, I never see invasive species. So refreshing.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, they, when it comes, especially in bird populations, those refuges are refuges. They truly are a native habitat that, especially, good forest and things. Hi, Kurt, down the street.
Hey, this is a question about water.
Do birds have the ability to process chlorine and chloramines in city water? I can't answer that. I don't know for sure. I can tell you that chlorine evaporates very rapidly in open air situations. As when we talk about cleaning a bird bath, using a 10% chlorine solution, just allowing it to air dry, chlorine evaporates very rapidly. So I think you're fine with city water. We've been providing it for them for however 100 years. Wherever once they started chlorinating city water, and the birds do just fine. As a matter of fact, these sources of unfrozen water, are critical for them. Laura from Birmingham, welcome there. I got my first order. Thank you. Yeah. They thoughts on that. Okay. Again, this is a native species displacing another species, and so much of what goes on. This is the condition, especially in the Northwest, where the spotted owl has been there. That is the owl of the Pacific Northwest. The barred owl is a much more eastern and southern species. What has happened because of man's manipulation of the environment, clear cutting forest and urbanization, barred owls have worked their way west. They're breeding and successfully further and further west. Well, now we're getting to where those populations are crossing, and barred owls are much more aggressive than spotted owls. They are actually killing spotted owls, and the spotted owls being endangered species, we're tasked with protecting endangered species, trying to keep their population in check, and so that they can succeed. Well, if left unchecked, it's pretty accurately that the barred owls will take over and kill barred owls and breed them out of extinction. They will definitely interbreed with the spotted owls, and eventually there will be no more spotted owls. There'll be all barred owls. And from the conservation community, that's not a positive thing. We don't want to reduce biodiversity, and so we try to do what we can do to help protect those spotted owls and those areas. So there is the programs you've heard probably about where they're killing the barred owls to try to keep those populations apart. That's what that's about.
It's just
also put up perch poles. Yeah, Rick, that's they do. They love perching out on the post and power lines and everything like else. Yeah, and if you're in a really really open area, having perch spots, because they are perch hunters. They like to sit up there and they cock their head, look down, and they fly down to get the bugs and come back up. T-posts are great. They definitely are.
Andrew says, make sure you put the bell
on. Thank you, Andrew. Yes, click the bell. Ding. I never know what that meant until I started the channel, and now I know why everybody says that.
Ellie says
at least 70% of the food I buy at your store is eaten by sparrows. Yeah, Sally, I understand that. That's probably not too far out from my backyard either. I mean, everything I try to do, I always talk about the can't beat them, join them solution, and making sure you try to put out millet on the ground and places to keep the house sparrows off of your feeders. That does help. That really does, because they do want the millet and they do want it on the ground. So that can help keep them off and so that your bluebirds and goldfinches and housefinches can get to the other seed by keeping those sparrows off on the ground.
Okay.
So a place store that sells suction cup tree icing bark butter feeders. Suction cup tree icing. I have better success with the type of food offering, but I'm unable to feed it from my. Now, Alyssa, at the store, you might want to, if you go to our store, online store, Shop Back Everson, look up something called the Great Hang Up. It's the best suction cup. I have two of them on my kitchen window off my deck. They suction cup to the window, and it's a nice acrylic hook, and you can hang like that type of feeder, like Mr. Woodpecker is a feeder we have that you smear the tree icing in. It can hang from a great hang up like that. That might be something that to help you. But if anybody else has got any suggestions, that's definitely.
That's a good question right there.
We got it is illegal to move a nest of many species. Do you have a list of birds whose nests are okay to get rid of? Ruby, the three species that have no federal protection whatsoever, and you have no fear of destroying their nest or the birds either, are European starlings, house sparrows, and domestic pigeons. Now, in your state, you may have others at it, like in Florida. I showed the purple swamp hen. There are some that don't afford federal protection in certain parts of the country. But those three are the three that are the widely recognized and have no federal protection. There's no fear of prosecution. Now, and like I said, you may check your local conservation department to see if there is any species in your state. People ask about cowbirds. People ask about grackle. Those are federally protected species. Those are native to this country. And yes, I do know that they can have negative impacts, basically the cowbird with their brood parasitism, but they are native and you cannot. I've had people on this chat say something about they killed a cowbird, and you know what, you can get prosecuted for that. The U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service can come knocking on your door. Not that it'll happen, but you could. So yeah, those three are the three to be sure that you're safe if you want to remove nests and things.
And I posted the link to the Great Hang Up.
Okay, great. Melanie put the Great Hang Up on there. That's good. All right. What are the differences between male and female downy woodpeckers? Well, the male has a red spot on the back of his head. Where is that picture? Was that here? Yeah, that little red spot right back there on the back of the head of that woodpecker. That tells you that's a male downy woodpecker. The female will not have that red spot. It'll just be the black and white on the back of the head. Same is true of the hairy woodpecker as well. Good question. No corn to the dear starling. Absolutely do not feed crack corn. Stay away from the grains if you can. Like I said, the millet, throwing the millet out is the can't beat them, join them method. But if you stay away from grains, as the most part, that's the crack corn, the millet and milo, things like that. Hopefully, in the best case scenario, you have a neighbor who's feeding the junk seeds like that, the grains and the crack corn, and that hopefully will draw those house sparrows over to them and leave you the good birds. All right, I'm adding 2 more eastern bluebird houses in my yard, hoping to get them eventually. Remember, the houses need to be about 100 yards apart, Andrew. The males will fight if they're too close. So, but you can have a bluebird in one and a tree swallow in the other, or a Carolina wren in one and a bluebird in one. But the bluebirds are not going to nest with 100 yards of each other, the males. All right. I find the best bird watching for house sparrows after some local lows in the farmers. I have a good friend who made a living ridding big department stores like Lowe's and Walmart of house sparrows. Yes, they are definitely there. You can attack pieces of metal, the perimeter of the outside of your house. So somebody sent me a post the other day, said they dangle some metal from the corners of their soot feeder, and that seems to be helping. So that is worth a try. Absolutely. That's your fault to protect tree swallows. Yeah, absolutely. Tree swallows are gorgeous, and they nest in bluebird houses. I mean, they typically the dimensions of their boxes are a little bit larger, but they do nest, and beautiful, and very, very helpful birds. Absolutely.
This might be a good question. Can you use Clorox wipes?
Can I use Clorox now? You could. I don't know what other detergent might be in Clorox. I would just still rather just use a straight 1 part water, 1 part Clorox to 10 parts water. But because I don't know what's in Clorox wipes other than the bleach.
Okay, Ellie says.
All right, let's remember to touch the like button. Thank you, Ellie. Thank you.
And share. Tell them about we're almost to 15,000 subscribers.
Oh, right. We are very, very close to 15,000 subscribers, and
2 million.
And we're almost to 2 million views, which is just outstanding,
so
unbelievable, guys. So thank you so much for sharing. And if you get a chance to let people know about us, we're getting so close to those milestones, and those are great. I mean, I never thought that somebody would want this to hear me talk about birds. And I don't know how many of you saw the post on the community page about my article. You guys get to see it all the time behind my head. There it is. Where is it? There it is. There.
Other side. Other shoulder.
There it is. Wow. Everything's reversed. I can't see. But that's that article right there. Winter Sparrows.
Right now.
Melanie's going to post the link. But a gentleman who is in a local Master Naturalist program really wanted a copy of that article, which has been out of production for quite a while. I wrote it 30 years ago. But he found it. He was very persistent and found how to access it. And we're going to put a link up. If you can download a digital copy.
Sorry, the link's not wanting to. It's like too long or something.
It's not wanting to work. But if you go to the Mark's community page, you go to my Facebook page. We put the link up on there, and we will try to get it up on here. We'll put it in the comments section below after the program, at least by tomorrow. And you can click on it, and you can download a digital copy of that article, the Winter Sparrows of Missouri that I wrote some years ago. And he contacted the Conservationist magazine about it, and they were able to send him an old copy in the archive. So I don't know how many of them there out there, but that's really cool. Like I said, I had several, but over the years it's dwindled down, and I only have a handful left. So if you're interested in it, that's out there now, and that's it makes me very, very proud. That was I really, really enjoyed.
And I just posted the link to the Facebook group so they can.
Oh, Melanie just posted a link to if you haven't joined the Mark's Backyard Bird community group, that you can find a lot of stuff on there. You have a hermit thrush over, and that's wonderful. Yep. Where are you? You're just south of Atlanta. Okay, for the first time. Fearless ruby crowned kinglet. Yeah, the hermit thrushes are. Sometimes heated bird bass are a real key to getting them in. That's how I used to have them at the old when I was running Martha Lafitte.
So sweet.
This is by a long way the best birding site on YouTube. Oh gosh, thank you, John. Thanks for all you're doing. I appreciate that. It means a lot. I mean, education is really what keeps me going, and you guys let me know that you find it helpful. I really appreciate Andrew. Had some kind words similar to that the other day, and it just makes me feel good. It builds me up, makes me want to keep doing this, and that's for sure.
Post that one. That's the link.
All right, let's see.
That's the link.
There's a link to the community page if you're interested in that. People sharing pictures on there all the time and stories, and I just love watching you guys get going back and forth and sharing ideas and things. It's great. I'm glad to be able to put people together. And just Andrew and I were talking about earlier, being able to find birding groups in your area where you live that you can get out and enjoy other people that share your passion. And, if you've got a local Audubon chapter, if you have a local nature center, if you have even a bird store, a lot of times bird stores do bird hikes and things like that. And like with my group, I have my regulars who come every week during the spring and the fall. But so many of these folks have groups. They call themselves Carry the Birding Five. They've gotten together and become really good friends. And they go bird watching and they come to the hikes and they go out on their own now, and it's fun. And I love that. And whenever new people come on our bird hikes, they're always welcome a new person. They new people, and they're so eager to share their knowledge. And you have people that have been birding, like Ruth and I have been birding forever, and then we have people that have just been at it for the last few years. We have brand new people all the time, and to share that passion and to get you out and teach you where good places are in your area, it's invaluable. So I really encourage you to get out and do a search. Like I say, your local Audubon chapter is a really good place to start. So. guys, it's been fun. It is an hour. Wow, that flew by. And I hope that you enjoyed it. I hope you learned something, and I hope you didn't find anything I said offensive. I just try to, do my best at teaching you what you can do as good bird land stewards, bird feeding stewards, landlords, and help your bird populations and the native birds of your area. So,
Okay, before you hang up,
oh,
somebody said they can't download the article from the Facebook page. Tell them to try to go to the Backyard Bird Center page and try that.
okay, yeah. If you go to Backyard Bird Center on Facebook, on there, and it's going to be one of the most recent posts that I did, and it'll be me shaking hands with a guy who found the article and things like that. There is a link in there, and it should take you directly to that article. If not, like I said, I'm going to put that link in the description below the program. I'll do that as soon as I get off here, so that if you go back and just go to this, click on the description, it'll expand way out, and there'll be a whole lot of information. And one of the first ones should be the link to that article. It'll say Winter Sparrows article, and then
if you still can't find it, just email us or message us, and
yeah,
we'll get it.
Always send me an email. Mark@backyardbirdcenter.com. All that information is below. You can always email me, and I've really enjoyed communicating with several of you now, and it's always fun. I mean, people who share this passion, I'm all about that.
She said it was on the Facebook page, so maybe something happened with the I don't know.
Okay, yep. Jan said it was on the Facebook page. Good. Thank you, Rhonda. I appreciate you joining in. Andrew, as always, I think you guys have a great night. You're welcome, Frontier. And you're right. Birders are the friendliest people. I'm able to. All right. Thank you guys so much. Have a good evening. And a couple of weeks, we'll be back on. It'll be the February Wild Bird Update, I'm sure. And until then, come by. Let's talk birds.